Hello everybody, my name's Andrew Moore, as it says on there. I'm Senior Operations Manager for Prospects, part of the Shore Trust Group. While this waits to work, I'll just flick through the slides. Today I'm going to talk about what supports InWork, what works in supporting InWork progression. InWork progression is a very big part of the future agenda of the government, the country, and a lot of people are talking about it. What comes next? We've got record levels of employment, but we've got a lot of people in low pay. And what I'm going to talk to you is about what we've done in Prospects to try and cater for people in that group. Firstly though, there's my presentation context. So what I'm going to talk about is background to InWork progression, what Prospects is doing to support InWork progression, what have been the key learnings to date, what has worked and what has been a challenge, what other InWork progression projects exist, and then what's next in the future. I don't think that works. See, I'm very good at this type of thing. Oh, there we go, thank you. Right, just a little bit about Prospects. If you haven't heard of us, our aim is to transform lives and communities through our innovation and expertise in employment, skills, care and education. We're over 20 years old, and we've combined business excellence and public service values to inspire more than 500,000 young people and adults across the UK to develop their potential every year. We work in the following three areas: employment and skills, care and support, education and learning. You probably know us, we're most famous, shall we say, for being prime provider of the National Career Service in London and the West Midlands and previously the South West. But we're all across the country delivering many employability programs. And in November 2017, we were acquired by the Shore Trust Group, and we now sit as part of the Shore Trust Group along with Shore Trust, Ixion Holdings, Disability Living Foundation. So, InWork progression. As I said just now, employment rates are currently at record levels, but the welfare bill is as high as it's ever been. As a result, there's a clear shift now in the need to focus on supporting people in low-paid employment and towards greater career and wage progression. InWork poverty is an increasing issue for the government, and it's recently been found that there are now actually more people in poverty in working households than there are in workless households. Lack of progression for parents in particular has resulted in an increase in children living below the poverty line. And even up until recently, there's very little to support people in that group. Recent research around about 2014 showed that there were 625,000 people currently earning below the London living wage in possibly one of the richest countries and richest cities in the world. So what happened? The research found that those in low-skilled occupations and on part-time or 0 hours or temporary hours contracts are less likely to have career and progression opportunities. The GLA, the Greater London Authorities, placed a large focus on InWork progression and poverty and they really championed the London living wage to lift people out of this poverty. And as a result, they allocated a significant amount of funding from the European Social Fund to improve career and work progression across London. Prospects was selected as prime provider in North and East and Central London in 2016, and the contracts totaled around 8.25 million, and the aim of which was to support people, particularly parents and lone parents, in low-paid or low-skilled, unstable employment to increase their wages and gain more stable jobs to lift them out of poverty, while also supporting local businesses to improve the skills and productivity of their employees. The programme, which we called at Prospects Employment Plus, as I said, we were awarded it in back end of 2016, and we went live 2nd of January 2017, and it actually comes to an end this month. It was extended for a period, but it does come to an end this month because it was funded by the Education and Skills Funding Agency, and obviously all that funding has now moved to devolve's GLA pot. So what is Employment Plus? The first thing you need to know is who is eligible or who was eligible to receive support. So participants must have an English address, they just have to live in England, and must be eligible to work in the European Union. They must be classed as low paid. low paid, and this was defined by the GLA as those earning 10% below the London living wage at 35 hours per week, less 10%. So it's all quite you had to get the calculators out when you had to work out who was eligible. But roughly speaking, it's about £321 a week. Anyone who was earning less than £321 a week could come onto the programme, and they had to have been in that employment for 4 months. Participants on 0-hour contracts were also eligible as long as they were earning below the £321 a week. There were specific target groups which we had to focus on as well. Parents, I mentioned parents before. Parents is a key demographic that the GLA wanted to target. 45% of all participants had to be a parent, of which 30% of that 45% had to be single parents, one of the biggest groups that are hit by in-work poverty. Over 50s, we had to work with those, ethnic minorities, females, participants without basic skills, and those with a disability or health problem are the priority groups that we had to target. And we achieved all of those targets apart from the disability or the health problem one. And we found it very difficult for people to actually open up and about disabilities and health problems on this programme, whereas we haven't on others. So we took a bit of learning from that. I said that they had to have an English address, but despite it being a London programme, they could come from anywhere outside of London, but the delivery itself had to take place within one of the 19 boroughs which we were successful in working in, and that's in North and East or Central London. The funding was drawn down through the employer rather than the individual, so participants must have the approval of their employer to come on the programme, which in itself created some problems. The reason for that is, due to the need for employer consent, Employment Plus has one key route for sourcing participants, and that was engaging with employers. Working with but we have worked with some partnership organisations which has worked really well for us, particularly Islington Council, their iWorks team, Southwark Works, One Housing, the Better Place Partnership, which is the working group for Southwark, Lambeth and Lewisham. But it presents its challenges because of that need for the employer to have the consent of the employer to actually work on the programme. Working with self-referrals who want a better employer is virtually impossible, as you're not going to come on the programme and have your employer know and then have to tell them you're on the programme because you want a better job. That just doesn't work. So once we've approached an employer, we can carry out an organisational training needs analysis to assess the employer's needs. And we look at how to address these. So key employers that we have worked with on programs include many care and security companies. This worked really well with care and security, but also school and nurseries. Once the referrals have been made, the participant completes a thorough initial assessment, individual learning plan, and it then follows. And in there is an agreement with the participant to cover regulated or non-regulated activity. It can be accredited or non-accredited. Learning includes personalised mentoring, coaching, progression support, as well as more traditional employability skills, and it can also incorporate accredited qualifications, but the funding for that wasn't huge. Support takes place around the participants' needs. These people are working, and we're working with parents, so the 9 to 5 just does not really work for these people. So weekends, lunch breaks, after work, before work, we had all of that available, and we put together quite a significant supply chain to help us deliver this programme of colleges, local authorities, training providers, etc. And as I said before, as the prime providers to the National Careers Service, all the people that came in the programme had access to that programme also. Maximum programme time for any individual was 12 months, but really we wanted people on programme for around 6 months because this was just quite a short, sharp programme in order to try and lift people out of poverty quite quickly as best we could. So how do we do? Since January 2017, we engaged with over 6,300 participants, quite a lot of people, all of whom have undertaken some form of training in either accredited or non-accredited or both. Targets on the programme were to progress 1 in 2 of those into an improved contract or an increased hourly wage. To date, we have progressed 2,600, so we're nearly there with another month to go, with the average contract improvement being 16 hours. So we actually increased their hours by 16, or from whatever it was to 16 more. And the increase in hourly rates was around £1.50 per hour, and the biggest one we had was somebody who actually doubled their wages. They went from £7.70 to over £15 in the end. As I said, the programme ends this month, and at present nothing significant is lined up to replace it. Ooh. Don't know what's happening there. So best practice issues and challenges. Engaging directly with employers brings the greatest success, but like I said, this could mean that we miss the people who needed our help the most. The low-hanging fruits, horrible phrase, but it's true. So we're basically supporting the employers, but rather than that person who really hates their job and doesn't want their employer to know and want to move out of it. But to engage with these, any future program really needs to have some sort of self-referral element. Because of the short-term nature of the contract and the high number of starts, 6,000 people is quite a lot in a very short period of time. We had to recruit people in bulk, so we had to go to employers. There was no other way. So any future program really needs to be longer. And smaller training providers with good existing employer links in place have performed the strongest on this program. What else? Focusing on certain sectors, as I said before, has proved fruitful. Career care, security, nurseries, all of those have a traditional career path that you can go through, and training then supports that and supports people to increase their wages thereafter. Evidencing the eligibility was a challenge. It's a nightmare trying to prove that somebody's earning less than £321 a week. The only way to do it is to get their wage slips. And do you want to give your wage slips over to a training provider? No, you probably don't. So a lot of persuasion. We had to take a lot of persuasion there. Some of the ESFA stipulations, which I'm sure you're all aware of. 28-day rule for claiming an outcome, for example, are very difficult. The employer-driven funding rather than the participant, and the low amount of cash we had available for accredited training proved a challenge. But the main challenge we found was trying to gain buy-in for career and in-work progression. Employers operating at low margins, retail, for example, you've got, it's horrific out on the high street. You try and go in and try and sell this program to a retailer and say, yeah, we want to take your staff off the shop floor for X amount of time. Yeah, you get free training, but we want you to pay them more at the end of it. They just laugh you out of town because they're operating on such low margins as it is. A lack of focus or understanding about it amongst organisations. I don't think people really give it the focus that it needs. And I go with DWP on that one, because the job centre really still is in that any job mode rather than better job or career, which if we're going to change things, they need to start thinking about the better job or the career bit of the ABC. So that was what we did in Prospects. There are other things going on. I won't read all of that, but the DWP know this is a big thing. They did their own universal credit program on 30,000 claimants. They came up with some similar. They split customers into three groups: frequent support, moderate support, or minimal support. And across all three support groups, the average self-reported net earnings increased from £154 to £190 per week, which is an increase of £36. And the average weekly hours increased by 3.6 hours. So we had much higher hours increases, but roughly about the same on the salary increase. And they worked out that even though this is quite small impact, the most important part of what their program offered, they said that engagement with the work coach at the job centre was key, and we found that as well. Engagement with our staff was key to getting people to progress. People can't just do it on their own. Some people can do it on their own, but people do need support to get that next step. Other projects, the DWP have funded or supported a number of trials, the TimeWise Foundation, the Goals UK Step Up model, and then there's the UK Futures programme as well. All of the information on these can be found at the Learning and Work Institute, because they're involved with a lot of this. Speaking of the Learning and Work Institute, most of you will probably know who they are. They're financially supported by the Trust for London, and they've got a big say in what's going. They've got a big part in what's going forward with better work. And they're looking at what works and best practice, and they are looking at Prospects Employment Plus program, and they're actually doing the evaluation on the program as well. So you should see that coming out very, very soon. They have come up with a typology of different types of in-work progression, very similar to what we've said, and that any future interventions need to focus on either the individual. So the individual gets individualised support, very much kind of your traditional employability support. Employer focused, which is what we did in Prospects. There you can hit a lot of people in bulk, and you can give big bulk training, or you can focus on the skills provider approach, supporting a sector or a profession or an area to direct and support talent generation and any skills gap needs. So what's next for in-work progression? The GLA have commissioned a parental employment program, nowhere near the size of Employment Plus. It was due to be, it was part of the last funding cachet, but then they pulled it, and it's due to come out again any time now and be launched in August 2019. I've put an asterisk against that because we're not sure. What are the DWP going to do about it? I was invited to the Treasury to meet with DWP and actually discuss what the findings of Employment Plus, what works and what we're going to do going forward. So it is at the forefront of their thinking, but I think they've got other things on their mind at the moment. Those who are interested should contact the Learning and Work Institute as well, because there's the Better Work Network and they're putting together a full guide on InWork progression. We're going to contribute to the evaluation of Employment Plus and build on our learning over the last 2 years to inform the next phase. So we want to be part of whatever comes next. On the back of this, we actually produced a commercial business that we could actually sell this product to employers as a business-to-business model. So that's worked quite well for us, and it also works for employers as well. And one of the key things we want to do going forward is work directly within local authorities to support with progression opportunities for their residents. Working with the councils, we think, is a really good way, and housing associations as well, of getting to the people and getting to those low-hanging fruit that need support to increase their career or work. Thank you very much. That's me done.